And good evening to our listeners and followers. Today is Sunday, January 7th at 8:27 p.m. Happy New Year. Happy 2024. This is Federico Lines of States Rights Radio and
Seth Hancock of Seth Hancock Reports. In tonight's episode, Happy New Year, we're going to have a discussion of federalism or Trumpism, the upcoming election, and Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2, and the basis for our discussion tonight is, Trump's legal battles concerning Colorado. I know Maine has already, the Maine Secretary of State, I think it's Secretary has said he's not allowed on the ballot there. But, we'll be just touching on the elections in general. And I guess, to start it off, I'll just say, buckle up. It's going to be a bumpy 2024 on many levels. Beyond the election, I think economically we're going to have some trying times this year. The wars are going to expand, in my opinion, but a lot of it's going to be fueled by our, fun little 4-year process of picking the next puppet. I think we talk about it being a circus. I think this election cycle is going to expose the clowns even more than even past elections.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, Seth. And it's going to be, like you said, a bumpy ride because, even new job numbers came out. But again, do I really believe the numbers that just came out of the economy that they claim that over 200,000 jobs were added and all that? And I keep telling people that, doesn't matter how many jobs were added, the economy is still in a recession. The economy hasn't really got out of this recession since 2001. And people, think that, Obama was doing a great job and Obama's numbers came out, then came Trump, and then now with Biden. And, honestly, even George W. Bush, this economy has not been that great since, I would say, 2001. And when Bush took office, even in 96, the economy was doing better than it is now because we had a full working majority in Congress with conservative legislators. But unfortunately, the economy is not doing good. Right now, there's a lot of unprincipled wars out there, Ukraine, and then the whole Middle East situation. And they're sending out troops out there under the War Powers Act. So we'll see how that foils, what crapola, NATO and all that will come out, what they're going to sell the American public. And this election situation with several states, the Maine Secretary of State also, she is requesting, Trump removed from the ballot. I'm not sure if it's a primary ballot or general ballot. But they're in the works. Colorado has trying to remove from the primary ballot. Michigan, I think someone filed a suit, but the suit was denied, so Trump will still be in the ballot in Michigan for the primary. It's, people... It's just astounding how the lens of people would go without reading a shred of the U.S. Constitution and its own state's constitutions. It's unbelievable how people are so blatantly ignorant from the left and the right, from conservatives to liberals, from Republicans to Democrats, from MAGA Republicans to liberals. It's just so sad to see that, none of them can really quote the Constitution. I've seen Alisa Haba, or I forgot her name. She's a Trump spokesperson for the legal team. She's saying that, Kavanaugh, Trump put him there and he fought for him and he'll fight for him too. Since when are justices of the court supposed to show privilege? This is just blatantly partisanship and blatantly ignorant that it just boggles the mind that we're living in something that, we're living in a new era where people don't want to even read, don't want to even acknowledge the Constitution exists under Article 2. I mean, many people have asked them, you know what Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 is? And people were saying, what's that? I don't know. They don't even know what the 16th Amendment is, so, let alone the 14th Amendment. So, it's the government keeping us dumb, and it's very sad. Like Seth said when we started, this is going to be a bumpy ride, and we're going to see a lot of ignorant people not knowing what they're doing when they cast their votes.
Yeah, and, I guess, a lot of this goes, and we've talked about this before, but, it bears repeating that a lot of this goes on the fact that the American people think that everything goes through the president. Like this is the ultimate position, and that's all that matters. And quite frankly, I'm kind of tired of it. We need to start focusing on local, not only local elections, but Americans need to locally within their families. They need to start protecting themselves and start making their lives better instead of looking for a president who they think is going to somehow be their savior. So that's it. But it's so hyper focused today because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the guy that either you're supposed to love him or hate him, and it's like absolute love to absolute hate. And they act as if there's nowhere in between. Like, to me, I don't care who's the president, because it doesn't matter. Washington's lost, in my opinion. We need to start building things locally and standing up and resisting unconstitutional dictates from the federal government. But we're not going to do that if we keep thinking that, if we elect our guy president, things are going to change. They're not. To me, the best outcome of this 2024 election, it doesn't matter who wins the presidency. I think the best outcome would be, record low numbers of voters turning out to vote for president, because that would be sending a signal to the feds that, hey, the American people aren't putting up with this crap anymore. We don't trust you guys in Washington anymore. That, to me, would be the best outcome. But I fear we're going to have another record turnout. A lot of people turning out because they love Trump or because they hate Trump. And that's a sad state for our country.
Well, I think we're gonna, I think 2020 started showing there was a low record turnout. I know in 2008 there was a high record turnout for Barack Obama from both whites and blacks, and many people don't, they a lot of people hid this, but in California, when a majority of Black Americans voted for Obama, but yet again, that majority of Black Americans voted for Proposition 8 into their state's constitution to ban same-sex marriage, and people don't want to see that. So, I mean, this idea, as you said, Seth, where, people looking for a savior and people looking for the chief executive to come and save America, whoever it is, that's why I have no faith in any of the candidates. I mean, Joe Biden or Robert Kennedy Jr. or Marianne Williamson or Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, Vivek Ramaswamy, Ron DeSantis. All those, same candidates are in it for one thing and one thing only: to expand the national government, whatever they want. You have Ron that wants to expand it to immigration border status and wants to send my tax dollars to Texas to increase the border security. And then you have Chris Christie that wants to expand on bridges and pocket the money. You have Nikki Haley who wants to expand the defense industry because she's in the pocket of the defense industry, so she's going to make money of that. And then Vivek Ramaswamy And the same thing as Ron and Trump, I think he's just a little punk kid that doesn't know what he's up to, and I think he's not going to get anything. But, the point is that, we're here looking for somebody for president. Why? Where did this change? Where did America started looking up to a president? Was it under TR? Was it under Lincoln? Was it under Ulysses Grant? Woodrow Wilson? Where did that change? That this has become a big hype. Back in the old days with Washington and Jefferson and Madison, they weren't looking for a leader like that. They were looking for somebody to be president of the country and do things that were not that populist. Now this is why I've asked the question to my good friend Sad, who started this popular vote? Because populism is what kills. This is what's going on with the 17th Amendment. Populism brings anxiety, brings chaos, brings dismay, and populism actually brings unwanted democracy, that this country is not a democracy. So we don't want that. We don't want this popular vote. So if anybody's out there who wonders where did this populism and popular vote came about, I'd like to know, because I know the election 1800. I think I mentioned before the show started. That's where we started first seeing the election of 1800 with the popular vote. And guess what happened there? No one got the majority because we rely too much on people that people don't know, and that's why the votes went to the U.S. House. So my main concern is that we got to lay off this presidential race and just have a low voter turnout. Abstain your vote until we get nothing done and all that. So that's my 2 cents. We got to abstain it so we don't pay too much attention to it.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to this, this affection for democracy. I'm sorry, I don't want democracy. I want my republic back. As I've said before, voting is not the penultimate right. I believe it's really a privilege, not a right. But ultimately, we need to be fighting for our actual rights, our freedom of speech and press and all the other components of the First Amendment, our right to keep and bear arms in the Second, our right to not have soldiers quartered in our homes, which, a lot of people don't think applies anymore, but I think it does when it comes to the NSA spying apparatus and stuff. But, these are the rights we need to be fighting for. But instead, everybody's fighting about being able to vote for whichever dictator they want to rule over them. I don't want a dictator. I want my republic back. And, I don't want the rule of the majority, the tyranny of the majority. I want a republic where our liberties are valued and protected. But it just kind of, like I said, Trump is the kind of the focus of all things, pushing whether you hate him or you love him, and that's what everybody needs to talk about, is how much you love him or how much you hate him. Well, we need to stop putting so much attention to this presidential reality show, because that's what it is. These guys are actors on a stage, and they don't do anything. We have unelected bureaucrats who actually run the country, and it doesn't matter which puppet is installed. The government just gets bigger, and that's how things work. And we need to work against that, to try and change that, to try and shut down the unconstitutional bureaucracies. And we won't do that until we stop putting so much attention on this reality show called a presidential election. And, there's also the hypocrisy that I see. The Democrats think that Donald Trump's an existential threat to democracy. The conservatives think the left trying to make them not be able to vote for Donald Trump is an existential threat to democracy. Meanwhile, both parties work hard every election cycle to make sure third-party candidates don't get on the ballots. They don't want the people to be able to vote for who they want to vote for, and yet today, because it's Donald Trump, that gets people all upset. We need to start focusing locally, and we need to start bettering our own lives without the quote-unquote help of the federal government. We need to start, focusing locally, and it's just, if we keep the focus on the presidency, then we'll never get there.
No, we'll never get there indeed. And, to point back on, this right to vote, yeah, I mean, citizens do have the right to vote. But yet again, something that, Congress failed to administer is because, citizens have the right to vote, but who has a right to control those votes? The states. When Thaddeus Stevens and the radical Republicans were creating these Civil War amendments, they were not focusing on the rights of the states, the rights of even the individuals within those states. So, everybody has a right to vote, but the states still control the procedures of that right to vote. And if states want to ban whether the primary status or general status of a candidate, I mean, again, they can do it. I have no problem with that. I really don't. And, now Republicans are bringing up, not really Republicans, the MAGA Republicans. They're now saying that Democrats, they banned Lincoln and now they're banning Trump. I mean, they're focusing this politicization of politics instead of constitutionalism, where, I see Nigel Farage making these claims and all that, and I go, wait a minute, why is a British guy interfering in our electoral process? He doesn't know jack squat about it. We fought a war to get rid of that. Stick in England. I don't interfere in your electoral process where the House of Commons gets elected by the people and who's ever the majority. That's a democracy. The people of England don't even get to vote for a prime minister. The House of Commons does. So, I mean, it's still indirect democracy. Here you have this. It just ticks me off to see somebody like Nigel Farage interfere in the electoral process of this country and has no idea. And even the Americans have either no idea, or they're just plain ignorant, or plain stupid, or just don't care. I'm going to go with don't care. That's why I keep telling people you've got to read Article 2, you got to read how this country was founded on. We're not a democracy. We've never been a democracy. And, we have to let the states take their role. And if they want to ban Trump, I mean, you can still write Donald J. Trump if you want to. That's fine. If it's going to be counted, that's up to the state and their standards. I have no right. It's just, and I wanted to bring this because it's, I want to bring up the election of 2000, where the Republicans and Democrats, the Democrats wanted the votes to be counted and all that, and so there were issues with the electoral ballots in several counties in Florida, where they were being counted in Dade County. They were counting dimple chads and hanging chads, while in other counties that were not. And that's why I think there was, the question that people need to say, was there an irreparable harm done to Trump in the 2020 election? No, there wasn't. There wasn't, because all ballots were counted exactly the same. But in the election 2000, there was irreparable harm done to Bush, because counties were not following the Florida standard. They're following the Dade County standard. They're following the Broward County standard. So, and then you have these Gore team saying that it's a threat to democracy, and now you have this Trump team that they're saying there's a threat to democracy. I go, what? Well, it's just are we hypocrites or something? So this is something that's really alarming. Now, I don't like George W. Bush. I don't like Gore, but we follow what the rules are, and the rules are that states make those rules, not with elections. States make those rules. That's why I opposed Texas interfering in Wisconsin, and I opposed Congress trying to pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. Because they're setting a standard. A standard's done by the state. Whether you like it or hate it, that's how it says. And, we'll discuss our predictions of the Supreme Court with this at the end, almost at the end of the segment. But, we have to follow the standards of each state. We are not a union. I mean, we're not a united democratic union of states. We're a united Republican union of states, where each state is autonomous but yet follows the Constitution. People need to understand that, and it's so sad that these MAGA Trumpers, whether you love them or you hate them, you have to, whether you love or hate Gore and Bush, you have to follow the Constitution. So, it's just unnerving and quite hypocritical.
Yeah, and it's hypocrisy also. I mean, because we're now hearing Texas, Florida. There's suggestions that if Trump's kicked off the ballots in Colorado and Maine, that they'll kick Biden off the ballot. Which fine, you have the right to. But then again, don't whine about your guy getting kicked off another state's ballot. I mean, it goes back to the 2020 election and all the the posturing by Trump that it was stolen from him, and I don't know how to get through to Trump supporters, but Donald Trump never even tried to legally prove that the election was stolen from him. He literally got you guys to open your wallets to give him money, and didn't even put up a legal fight. I mean, was 2020 stolen from Donald Trump? Well, he never tried to prove it. So, he just said it was so, and therefore it was so to the Trump supporters. People need to wake up to the theater that's going on. That's all designed to get you to give your savior money, it's just, look, we need to get focused on fighting for our liberty and not fighting for, politicians who do nothing but steal money from you. It's that we need to focus locally. I be a broken record here, but it's got to be said time and time again that we can change things everybody thinks that change starts at the ballot box. No, change starts today. We can stand up to unconstitutional dictates. We can resist the unconstitutional edicts from above, because they don't have authority to tell us how to live our lives. But if we keep thinking that elections are when things change, then there's never going to be change. We need to start focusing on our own lives, and if elections have any meaning, it's locally. Elect people locally who are going to stand up to the behemoth government in Washington. But that's where the focus needs to be. And, it's just, and it plays right into the hands of the ruling class, that they do the divide and conquer strategy. They want us at each other's throats. And they love this, this division that Trump has created. because it allows them to take more power and control while we're distracted with this presidential reality show. They want us to hate each other. And I mean, you got a movie coming out this year called Civil War where, they're trying to do a movie that shows what a civil war would look like today in America. Are they trying to tell us something? Are they trying to spark something here? That's what they want. They want us fighting with each other instead of uniting around liberty and our own personal lives. And this election stuff is just a distraction.
No, it is. I'll get to that. I know. I think I saw this trailer for that Civil War movie, and I'm not gonna even bother to see it because I'm not gonna see that trash. But you mentioned that states and Florida is thinking of barring Biden from the ballot in Texas and other states. And I mean, is Biden ever going to win Florida? Probably not. Is he going to win Texas? Probably not. Was John Breckinridge thinking of winning Pennsylvania? Doubtful. I mean, John Breckinridge was a staunch supporter of slavery. Pennsylvania was not. So if Pennsylvania wanted to bar John Breckinridge, I mean, he wasn't gonna win that vote for Pennsylvania or Connecticut or Maine. So here comes, again, it's all politics with constitution issues, and regardless if you hate Breckinridge or you hate Trump or you hate Biden or you hate Lincoln or love Lincoln or love Breckinridge, it all comes down, and I hate to sound like a broken record, but it all comes down to each individual state, because bottom line is, again, when it happens in 2000, I remember that, the Democrats wanted to put the Texas standard of counting dimple chats and using hand recounts. I don't know what Texas law is, and I don't care what Texas, and I don't care who signed that law into who signed that bill into law. I think it was George W. Bush when he was governor. I don't care. We're discussing Florida. We're discussing Florida standard. We're discussing Pennsylvania standard with the mail-in ballots that Trump signed a executive order during the whole COVID disaster crisis to have easier access to ballots. Of course, Trump didn't like it because when the results came back in, they favored Biden. I mean, you can't have it both ways. So and by the way, we don't need the federal government to say, oh yeah, we can, we'll allow you to have mail-in ballots. Come again? Read Article 2. We don't need permission from the federal government to have this access. We can do it on our own. The Constitution grants us that. So I sure hope the Supreme Court, will, again, Colorado and other states are trying to bar Trump from the primary election. And primary elections are by political party, not by the states, but yet states do regulate. But again, states do regulate primaries. So there is the issue of, Republican Party or the state regulating. So because they do regulate the primary elections. So I just hope that, the Supreme Court shouldn't hear these cases. They should just let the states go on about. And they should I don't think this is a meddling from the Supreme Court. This is meddling from the federal government. They should just stay out of it as much. Because I think that, the Supreme Court should not be meddling in state electoral issues. I really don't. I would have wished they wouldn't have even picked it up. But they are going to listen to the case. I hope Neil Gorsuch sticks to his word as he did in Hassan versus Colorado. Kavanaugh, I hope he will stop drinking and focus on the Constitution. Amy Coney Barrett, I don't know. She's a tough one to crack. Clarence Thomas, stay away from Jeannie because your wife is a little bit of a nutcase. Who's another one? Roberts, I don't know. Roberts, I don't think he'll side with Trump. I think he'll side with the state court. And then, of course, you have the liberals that now the liberals, Sotomayor and Kagan and Ketanji Jackson, now these are the constitutionalists. These are the anti-federalists that wants to give power to the states. Wow. How the tables have turned, huh, Seth? Now the liberal justices are now for state sovereignty? Wow. So we'll see how it goes there. What's your prediction on each? I want to hear on each justice. What do you think?
Oh, it's hard to read. I recently wrote on a recent Supreme Court decision that should have gotten more media coverage, but of course didn't, which was on the Supreme Court basically sided with protecting, having to do with vaccine mandates and the COVID shot. And basically, there were some lower court rulings that sided with the people who were against the mandates, but the Supreme Court was asked to step in and not overturn those rulings, but basically state that this isn't a precedent. They didn't want the precedent set that liberty is the precedent, essentially. And the Supreme Court sided 8-1 with saying, yeah, the federal government has the right to mandate vaccines and other medical treatments and stuff like that. And the one justice who sided against that was Ketanji Brown Jackson, which I'm like, not a big fan of hers, but, thank you. You had the right vote on that. I think the Supreme Court, I think all 9 of them, I think they will side with protecting federal power. How they do it, they'll, there's possibility that all 9 side with Trump because it'll give them the power to federalize elections more. It's hard to read. I don't know, but I think that's a distinct possibility because that would give the federal government more power to side with Trump on this.
Wow, that would be a nightmare upon nightmare, giving federal power on electoral issues of the states. That is a nightmare that, thanks to Trump, where, again, federalism or Trumpism, that scares me. That really does. And, Trump is actually hurting this republic, and people are not seeing it because, whether you, as you said, Seth, either you love him or you hate him. So that scares me. I really hope that all 9 of them, at least Roberts with the liberals, they side with the states. And, I know that, there was a Supreme Court ruling in 2005, Gonzalez versus Reich, where it was medicinal marijuana, and the liberal justices and Scalia sided with the Commerce Clause, giving power to the federal government. But, the reasons behind, I understand the reasons behind Scalia sided with that is because, the law that California tried to pass showed no sign of state sovereignty. And California was trying to get federal funding and state funding from other states. So, but on this case, Trump is really hurting this. And in the end, it's all about me, ego of Trump, and really ruining this republic in the eyes of how it was founded on. And that scares me, that all 9 of them will do a per curiam and side with more power with the federal government. So then Article 2 becomes non-existent. Can the courts really do that? Can the courts really overrule Article 2? I thought Congress was the job to do that, not the courts. If the courts do that, then we have 9 legislators. I don't want that. This is the hypocrisy of the Trump movement, that they criticize the courts acting like legislators, but yet they want them to be legislators. This is just boggles the mind, the hypocrisy and the lying that this person has done. And I just, God forbid, I mean, I don't want them overruling Article 2, because that gives us our power of state sovereignty over the federal government. I mean, you know, people have to wake up on this. And I know the MAGA, well, I mean, at least, I'll say this, Seth, at least Ann Coulter, I don't know if she'll vote for Trump again, but she's shown a lot distant from Trump. And a few other ones have as well. So, only the extreme morons that are out there, like Steve Bannon and all those that are still clinging to this moron. But it scares me. It really does, that they just don't care about the Constitution. Neither the left, but at least, you know, like I said, you know, with Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sotomayor and Kagan and even Roberts, I mean, I think, you know, those are our saviors of our republic, whether I agree with them or not. But I hope they will side with Article 2.
Yeah, and you know, the problem is there's just so much money behind the support of Trump. I mean, you know, you look at a guy like Ben Shapiro or Glenn Beck, who in 2016 they were saying some of the most, you know, they hated Trump in 2016, and then suddenly he wins and they love Donald Trump, and they're making loads of money by just supporting Donald Trump. And that's the biggest thing that you know, you look at the legal battles for Trump, or you look at, you know, the Republicans in Congress are now impeaching Joe Biden. The biggest problem is everything's so transparent about selfishness. It's not about actual justice. In my opinion, both Donald Trump and Joe Biden, and quite frankly, every president in my lifetime, should have been impeached. But the problem is the people impeaching them, you know, when you go back to the Clinton impeachment, it was transparently political. It wasn't really about going after Clinton over, say, his bombing of wedding parties in the Middle East. It was, you know, some stupid infidelity in the Oval Office. You know, everything's so transparent that both the left is playing politics and the right are playing politics. It's not about true justice. It's not. Donald Trump should be prosecuted for stealing our money to warp speed a poisonous vaccine. Joe Biden should be impeached and prosecuted for you know, spending all our money in these unconstitutional wars. You know, there are real crimes that both parties commit, that all the politicians commit, and they never go after the real crimes because, you know, they're all guilty. So everything is political, everything is staged, and it's all for personal benefit of the politicians. And that's, you know, even here with this ballot access. You know, you don't have to like what they're doing in Colorado or Maine. And, you know, I don't see it as they're kicking Trump off the ballot for legitimate reasons. They're doing it because they want to stop Trump from being president. But nobody wants to actually talk about really what's going on here. They live in this circus, this reality show, and nobody wants to actually seek justice. And, you know, if we had actual justice, you know, we wouldn't have any of the politicians who are in there today, whether it be presidents or congressmen. They'd all be out of a job because they locked us down. They called us non-essential. This is I can't get over this. And we were called non-essential, and yet people are still going to, our choices, our so-called choices that they're going to give us in this election is between the guy who locked us down, called us non-essential, and the guy who mandated the poison shot and kept the lockdowns going. And you're going to tell me we have a choice? It doesn't matter who's elected. They're going to try and take more power from us. And that's why we need to focus locally and standing together instead of being distracted by this reality show.
Yeah, and, going with the impeachment process, I mean, I know that Congress defines those high crimes and misdemeanors, and unfortunately they were since they didn't have evidence on Clinton, on his high crimes and misdemeanors with Whitewater, they didn't have that much evidence. They went after him on perjury for getting a BJ from an intern. So that was his high crime and misdemeanor, was perjury. It was a trumped up charge. It was dumb. And they shouldn't have done it to begin with. The same thing you could say about, Andrew Johnson. I mean, was his high crimes and misdemeanors? That was also could be a political game by the radical Republicans, because he dismissed Edwin Stanton, and that was the reason why he got impeached. Well, I mean, presidents can seek the resignation of his cabinet members if they choose want to. I know many people don't like Andrew Johnson. People call him a drunk, but while he was president, I know that he vetoed a lot of Republican bills and civil rights bills and all that, and civil rights came more under Grant. But I do think he's a little bit underrated. But you're right. It's this impeachment fiasco has become more political, and because of Trump, whether you love him or you hate him. I mean, Trump has made a lot of. If I was a member of Congress and if I needed to define his high crimes and misdemeanors, I would say sending border troops, army troops into the border is one high crimes and misdemeanor. That's a waste of taxation, tax money and spending and all that. I would consider that a high crime and misdemeanor. The same thing with aiding other countries or aiding other states. The same thing with Biden. Those are how I would define high crimes and misdemeanors with the president. And it's just not Biden, but every single president up to maybe Wilson, with the exception of Coolidge. Coolidge, I would find some high crimes and misdemeanors with Coolidge when he signed the 1924 Immigration Act. But every president of the 20th century and 21st century, they've committed high crimes and misdemeanors that are not trumped up charges like perjury or whatever. But we've entered into a world of political partisanship and political games and political celebrity game status that is just way too sad, and we need to stop that, and we need to focus. What we need to focus on is maintain our Constitution regardless of political party status or political partisanship status. No one is above the law regardless of who they are. Judicial Watch, now they defend Donald Trump, and I still don't understand why. I thought your motto was no one was above the law except Trump. So, people need to focus that. And so in my conclusion in all this, I just hope that the Supreme Court decides not to take this case at the end, because it's not their choice. It's not their choice to dictate this. It's not the choice of the federal government to dictate this. And they should be up to Congress. Congress should dictate this. Congress should say to change the electoral laws and to change some status of the law. If they want to repeal Article 2 or reform Article 2 or amend Article 2. But it's up to Congress, not the courts. And this is where, again, you have this sensation that everything must be decided by the courts, whether it's for Trump or anti-Trump or for conservatism or liberalism. Oh, we all have to, decide by the courts. No, we don't. The courts don't need to decide this. It's Congress or your state legislatures need to decide this. And this is something that people fail to understand. And I'd like to touch base on that issue where a person asked me my feelings about, abortion and all that. It's not up to the federal government. It's not up to anything. So, and this rules the electoral laws. It's not up to it's not up to the courts. It's up to Congress. Do they want to remove that? Courts don't have that power to remove that. It's Congress. Congress can remove that. They can repeal Article 2. But my 2 cents, Seth, is that I sure hope the Supreme Court says, you know what, we're not going to listen to it. We're going to let it stand, and we're not going to touch it because we cannot touch Article 2. That's my dream. I hope that they're going to stand by the Constitution and not by some flaky candidate like Donald Trump.
Yeah, we can hope for a lot of things.
Yeah.
I don't have any faith in the Supreme Court. I don't have any faith in any politician, Democrat or Republican. And that's why I keep saying we need to focus locally. And, they're going to do what they're going to do. And we, the people, really don't have a say. And you need to start, and people need to start understanding that having a say isn't, who you get to vote for your elected dictator. Having a say means you having power and control over your own life. And, it doesn't matter what they do. They can lock you in a cage. They can, steal your money. But you do have the power to live your life the way you see fit. And you just need to be fine with the consequences. But we need to start standing up and doing things locally. I don't know what will happen with this. To me, it doesn't change my opinion. I still have no plans to vote for president in 2024. Unless maybe I find a third party candidate who I like. I just don't see myself putting in the time to research the third party candidates because to me, it doesn't matter who's president. The federal government's going to try and take more power as they always do. And that's why the focus needs to be on locally. And so it's going to be a wild 2024 election cycle. Maybe we'll get some entertainment out of it. I can't put too much time and energy to worry about what they're going to do anymore because they're going to do what they're going to do, and I have no say over that. But I do have a say over my own life, and so that's where the focus needs to be. Focus on yourself, focus on your family, your friends, and start weaning yourself off the drug of presidential politics.
Yeah, and with that note, you're right. I mean, I'm also probably going to abstain. Even third-party candidates, again, when I said earlier, I mean, what do they want? I think also third-party candidates wants to expand the national government. So I really have Gary Johnson wants to pass a national act on marijuana legalization, which I don't mind that, but I don't want a national act. I want him to abolish the DEA. I don't want a national act. So, yeah, I've lost faith in federal elections. Maybe, not even U.S. Rep or Senate. I'll just probably vote for state legislator or whatever, but even so, they're always going to be in the hands of their congressional delegations. So I'm going to abstain 2024. That's my hashtag, hashtag abstain 2024. I hope people will do their research and do the same. And that's it. So, we'll be back next Sunday. Seth, always a pleasure. And have yourself a great night.
Good night.